So far, we've been talking about how harmonics are responsible for the tone of audio signals, especially music. In general, the more you add of the higher harmonics, the brighter the tone becomes. Another way to look at it is, if you raise the higher frequencies of a signal with, say, equalization, the more the upper harmonics are accentuated and the brighter the tone gets. So that's not exactly rocket science. Now, what about the other end of the scale? If you take away low frequencies by filtering them out, what happens to the sound? It should get thinner and less weighty, which is true, but there is something else a bit funny going on here. I've gone on about the harmonic series and the relationship between the harmonics as being both whole number multiples and related to each other by ratios that represent musical intervals. So, if we were to say have a harmonic series based on a fundamental of 100 Hertz, it would start at 100 and continue with 200, 300, 400, 500, etc., etc. And the first interval between the first and second harmonics would be an octave. The interval between step 2 and 3 would be a fifth, from 3 to 4 a fourth, and so on. I'll repost the chart from the previous chapter starting on C, one octave below middle C, just to illustrate. What happens when we just take away the lowest, or so-called fundamental frequency, and leave the rest? In that case, we start with the second harmonic. You would think that the sound would get somewhat thinner, but what happens to the pitch? The second harmonic is an octave above the first, so you would expect that the pitch would jump an octave, right? Let's try it out. I'm going to play the fabulous bass line from the previous episode. First with the fundamental in, then again with no fundamental. Have a listen. So, those of you with speakers capable of reproducing the fundamental of this bass line will notice a loss of fullness when we take out the first harmonic. Those of you listening off your computer speakers probably didn't notice a change. In either case, the pitch didn't shift up and down an octave, but remained constant even though the lowest harmonic shifted an octave with each change. Crazy, right? There are several prevailing theories out there as to why this happens, and I like the one that states that we recognize the harmonic series unique to the pitch and our brains unconsciously fill in the fundamental to compensate, because we've stored a template of the series from previous experience. In other words, we've heard it before. For our purposes, it doesn't really matter why, but the fact that it does happen is very interesting for our pursuits. Remember, we've been talking about what loudness is and how peak levels cannot be exceeded without major consequences. It turns out that most of the energy in a modern musical piece is concentrated in the low frequency region. So, if we can figure out a way to reduce the energy needed in this part of the frequency spectrum, it leaves more overall room to make a louder recording.